Hello friends, this video on life processes part 15 is brought to you by examfear.com. No more fear from exam. So with this we conclude our discussion on respiration in animals. So let us now talk about respiration in plants. So we have already spoken about some of the basic things in plants, that is we have already spoken about nutrition in plants. We have talked about the process of photosynthesis also. So let us see how respiration happens in plants. Gaseous exchange takes place through diffusion. So in plants, gaseous exchange will take place through diffusion. What is diffusion? We know diffusion is a process where particles move from one medium to another medium such that it always moves from the medium of higher concentration towards the medium of lower concentration. Right? So that is diffusion. So here also gaseous exchange will take place through diffusion. For example, we take the gas carbon dioxide. So carbon dioxide will move or will get transferred from the external environment inside the plants when the concentration of carbon dioxide in the external environment is more than that inside the plants. Right? So based on the difference in concentration, the exchange of gases will take place. What are the gases that are exchanged? Oxygen and carbon dioxide. So we have seen in the process of photosynthesis, what happens in photosynthesis? We see that a carbon dioxide is a gas which is needed for photosynthesis. Right? So therefore exchange of carbon dioxide had to take place, intake of carbon dioxide had to take place. At the same time we saw that in photosynthesis oxygen was released. So oxygen was a product. So oxygen was to be thrown out of the plants. Again in respiration we saw that oxygen is utilized. So again you need oxygen. So the plants need to intake oxygen. And in respiration carbon dioxide is produced as a byproduct, so it needs to be thrown out. So these are the two gases which are involved in plants during the process of photosynthesis and respiration. So these two gases are mainly exchanged. Now the question is how or which part of the plant actually takes part in this gaseous exchange. So this diffusion takes place through stomata. I have already discussed what are stomata. They are tiny pores which are present on the surface of the leaves. So tiny pores which are present on the surface of these leaves. So that is stomata. It can also happen through lenticels. Now what are lenticels? These are porous tissue with cells having large intercellular spaces. So here you can see lenticels. So on the bark of a tree, do you see here some pores like structure? I think you would have seen it in very old trees in your locality also. So these kind of pores are known as lenticels. They are not actually pores, they are tissue which have pores. That is why they are called porous tissue with cells having large intercellular spaces. It also happens through the root surface. How from the root surface? Especially through the root hairs. Because the root hairs are in direct contact with the soil and the soil is also enriched with gases like oxygen. So the root hairs, since being in direct contact with the oxygen in soil, so diffusion of oxygen can take place across the root hairs. So however, we have these three different ways by which diffusion takes place, but most of the diffusion or most of the gaseous exchange happens through stomata. So most of the exchange takes place through stomata. Now let us talk about the direction of diffusion. As I said that okay, these are the two gases which the plants will exchange. One is oxygen and one is carbon dioxide. Now, what would be the direction of diffusion? Whether oxygen will move out of the plants into the atmosphere or it will come from outside to inside, or whether carbon dioxide will come from inside to outside, or how is it? So let us try to understand that how this direction of diffusion is decided in plants. The direction of diffusion depends upon the environmental conditions and the requirements of the plant. So what do I mean by these two terms? Environmental conditions and the requirements of the plant. So let us look at it. Now what are the two main processes which take place inside plants? One is photosynthesis and the second one is respiration. right? So what happens during photosynthesis? So if you look at the process of photosynthesis, carbon dioxide combines with water. Carbon dioxide combines with water in presence of light and chlorophyll. It forms glucose, that is C6H12O6, plus oxygen plus energy. So this is the equation of photosynthesis. And what happens in respiration? In respiration, glucose is broken down, or glucose is oxidized to give carbon dioxide plus water plus energy. Right? So what do we see? In photosynthesis, in this process utilizes carbon dioxide. So this process needs carbon dioxide, whereas this process, that is respiration, it needs oxygen, right? So the beauty in these two equations is that the product of photosynthesis is utilized by respiration. Product of photosynthesis is oxygen, and respiration needs this oxygen. Similarly, the product of respiration is carbon dioxide, and photosynthesis needs this carbon dioxide. So the product of photosynthesis is utilized by respiration, and the product of respiration is utilized by photosynthesis. Right? So this is clear to you. So whatever is released, that is not getting wasted, that is used up for the other process. Now the question is, does these two processes keep happening inside the plants 24/7? No. So there arises the problem. The process of photosynthesis. So when I talk of photosynthesis, it happens only in presence of sunlight. So that means this process will take place only during the daytime. There will be no photosynthesis at night. Right? So during the daytime, respiration as well as photosynthesis both occur. So carbon dioxide, which is produced during respiration, is used up in photosynthesis, and the oxygen which is produced in photosynthesis is used up by respiration. But it is seen that the rate of photosynthesis is faster during the daytime. So when I am talking about the day, so during daytime, what happens? Both respiration and photosynthesis, both of them take place. So in respiration, carbon dioxide is produced, which is used up by photosynthesis. In photosynthesis, oxygen is produced, which is used up by respiration, right? But during the daytime, the rate of photosynthesis is greater than the rate of respiration. That means photosynthesis happens faster than respiration. Now, if photosynthesis happens faster, that means more oxygen will be released when compared to carbon dioxide. That means, let us suppose if one equation, or if one process of respiration takes place, maybe by that time 2-3 processes of photosynthesis has taken place. So as the process happens faster, so the more amount of the product will be released. So if rate of photosynthesis is greater than the rate of respiration, that means oxygen released would be more than carbon dioxide. Therefore, net production of oxygen is more. Right? Now, if the net production of oxygen is more, then what will the plants do with that oxygen? They will throw that out. Right? So that means during the daytime, photosynthesis will produce oxygen, but it will produce more oxygen than required by respiration. So whatever is required by respiration, that the respiration process will be utilized, but the remaining amount of oxygen will be thrown out. So during the daytime, what will happen? Carbon dioxide. So overall, if you look at the two processes during daytime, so during daytime, what will happen? Carbon dioxide will be taken in and oxygen will be given out. This is what happens during the daytime. So plants will take in carbon dioxide and plants will give out oxygen. So that is what that happens at daytime. Now what happens at night? Now at night there is no sunlight, therefore no photosynthesis. So that means only respiration takes place at night. And what happens in respiration? So if you look at the process of respiration, respiration will utilize carbon dioxide and it will produce CO2. Right? So this CO2 which is produced is diffused to the environment. So the extra carbon dioxide which is produced is diffused to the environment at night time. So therefore the direction of diffusion in plants varies with the environmental conditions. Now you understand what does it mean by environmental condition, because whether it is daytime or night time, it also depends on that, because whether sunlight is present or not, because photosynthesis depends on the environmental conditions. And the second is requirements of the plant. That means what does the plant need? If the plant want to perform photosynthesis, it needs more and more carbon dioxide. If the plants want to respire, then it needs more and more oxygen. So environmental conditions and requirements of the plant, these two factors govern the direction of diffusion, which gas will diffuse in which direction. Clear? Okay. So let us look at the difference between day and night. So what happens during the daytime when photosynthesis can take place due to the presence of sunlight? So the carbon dioxide will move from plant to atmosphere. So movement of carbon dioxide from plant to the atmosphere is the major, so movement of, not carbon dioxide, movement of oxygen. So movement of oxygen during the daytime from the plant to the atmosphere, that is the major event, right? Because during the daytime photosynthesis and respiration both will occur. Since the rate of photosynthesis will be higher, therefore more and more oxygen will be produced. So whatever amount of oxygen is utilized by respiration, the remaining amount will be thrown out to the atmosphere. Whereas at night time what happens? There is no photosynthesis, so only respiration takes place. So in respiration the plant will take in oxygen and it will give out carbon dioxide. Right? So this is how there is a difference during the day and during night. So now that we have reached towards the end of our discussion on respiration in plants, let us quickly conclude what all we discussed. During night, carbon dioxide diffuses out from the plants to the environment because only respiration happens. During daytime, oxygen diffuses from plants to the environment because the rate of photosynthesis is higher than the rate of respiration. Exchange of gases between plants and environment occur through stomata, lenticels or root hairs. However, most of the exchange happens through stomata. Internal transport of oxygen and carbon dioxide occurs through the intercellular spaces in plant tissues, because till now we were only talking about how the exchange of gases will take place between plants and the environment. So we were basically talking about the exchange of gases either between the stomata and the environment, or between the lenticels and the environment, or the root hairs and the environment. But that gas also needs to be transported to all other parts of the plant. So that internal transport is taken care by the intercellular spaces, because in plant tissues and many of the plant tissues there is a lot of intercellular space, and those intercellular space actually helps in carrying the gases from one part of the plant to the other. So now you would have noticed one thing, that in case of plants we don't talk about the food breakdown. Why? Because plants make their own food and they make food in a simple form. So plants do not have a holozoic nutrition. We talk about the breakdown of food. Like we talked about the process of digestion and all only in case of animals, because they take in complex food, right? So respiration in case of plants is all about the exchange of carbon dioxide and oxygen between plants and the environment, so that they can prepare their own food, so that they can also oxidize the glucose to produce energy. So here we do not have the concept of breaking down the food, but at the same time the glucose with the simple food which was prepared, that is stored in the plants, and that is then oxidized to release that energy, which can be utilized for many other purposes. Thank you. Please visit www.examfear.com to watch more videos, attempt free online test, get free study material, find tutors and mentors. Thank you once again.